President Trump, he's trying to get rid of the financial regulations that were put in place after the financial crisis. Now, the president signed an executive order Friday aimed at paving the way to get rid of Dodd-Frank. Now, that law did a whole lot of things, including toughening capital requirements for financial firms, also setting up a panel of regulators to keep watch on Wall Street, and it also created the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau to oversee credit cards, mortgages, as well as other financial products. Now, here's what the president had to say in explaining why he wants to get rid of it.
We expect to be cutting a lot out of Dodd-Frank because, frankly, I have so many people, friends of mine, that have nice businesses. They can't borrow money. They just can't get any money because the banks just won't let them borrow because of the rules and regulations in Dodd-Frank. So we'll be talking about that, Jim, in terms of the banking industry.
Okay, so he wants to help out pals on Wall Street. But listen to what he had to say about Hillary Clinton and her relationship to Wall Street on the campaign trail.
Hillary is totally controlled by Wall Street. I mean, she may say not, but she is totally controlled by Wall Street.
Now, half of Goldman Sachs is in the cabinet, but you get the drill. All right, big question. If they get rid of all the new regs, are we paving the way for another financial crisis? Now, I get it, and I've heard from some folks who say, some of the reporting that's necessary in this is onerous. And I've even seen interviewed both Barney Frank and others saying they got a point here. But we lost Congress. You were there when they lost the majority and they couldn't make some of the changes. And I also know some of the community banks are facing some of the same requirements as some of the much bigger banks are. And then you can fairly argue that they've been unfairly punished. But explain how getting rid of the Consumer Financial Board here and getting rid of the requirement on advisors to seniors for retirements that they have to act in the best interest of their clients. Explain to me how that is good for the American public.
It's not good, and it's based on an untruth. So President Trump says some of his friends are having trouble borrowing money. Well, the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis says we are at a 70-year high in the availability of credit to commercial borrowers. A 70-year high. And people have put forth statistics saying that small businesses, only 4% of small businesses say they're having trouble getting a loan, meaning 96% are doing just fine getting a loan. But here's the problem. Those Dodd-Frank regulations were put in place because we almost had another Great Depression. It almost destroyed the U.S. economy and the world's economy. So to get rid of those protections is just downright crazy, especially when there's no need, given the president's untrue statement about why he wants to do it. People need more credit. They're getting credit now at record levels. And the other thing is, we have 90 million Americans who have 401ks. 90 million. 21 million Americans have IRAs. The law that was supposed to go into effect in April of this year, the fiduciary rule, was simple. It was to say, if you're going to advise somebody who has an IRA or a 401k about what to invest their money in, you can't be working for the other side. You're working for those people. Now, it only applies to retirement stuff, 401ks and IRAs, but that's enough. That's a lot of Americans, 90 million. And the AARP, the largest lobbying, one of the largest lobbying groups in the country, certainly it's all about seniors, they're vehemently against the Trump effort to get rid of this fiduciary rule, which was a consumer protection rule requirement of Obama's that everybody says is a smart, good thing for those who are investing money for their retirement.
You know, Jeannie, what he said, and then you can say the regular person can understand you can't have 30 to 1, 60 to 1 levers, which is, in translation terms, you can't be giving out $60 if you only have $1 in the bank here in case things go south. But I understand how this thing can be spun out there to say, oh, typical liberal Democrats in Congress trying to micromanage everybody, big government telling people what to do, just get out of the way of business here and let them do what they do so they can open up their wallets and lend more to you, Joe Q. Public. Conversely, I think everybody can say 2008 wasn't that long ago. You remember what happened the last time we left these guys alone and let them mind the candy store? Which of the two messaging is going to relate given this specific thing, which is, do you want to go back to the way it was, or should we leave it the way it is?
The problem is we're only hearing one message, and this is the fault of the Democrats. They put on the top of the ticket somebody who could accurately be accused of having very strong ties to Wall Street. And that message was heard loud and clear. And of course, Donald Trump has ties to Wall Street. Of course, the Republicans do. But the Democrats have not made the opposing message, and they have no leadership right now to make that message. You can talk about Senator Warren, perhaps, and you could talk about Senator Sanders, but you need a Democratic Party that's going to mount an opposition, and they are going to make that message heard, and we don't have that coming through. So the only message is going to be the message that the Republicans are giving, and they have a president on top who is a self-proclaimed populist who goes out there and make these statements, and people believe them, and the Republican Party has an interest in deregulating the banks, and they're going to go forward with that, and they control enough of the Congress and the presidency to do it.
100% what you said, but Andrew, to me, optics sometimes more important than substance. Do you think it filters down to the public to say, wait a second, this guy told me he was going to drain the swamp? They heard that enough that people remember that one, right? And he also said, those Wall Street SOBs not going to be in my house. Half of his, I mean, literally, I think Goldman Sachs created an office, right, in this administration. And I'm not even, by the way, as negative as some are, that it's a bad idea to have people with experience in financial institutions. He certainly wouldn't be the first president to have it, okay? But it's so nakedly hypocritical what he said and what he's doing. Does it filter down at all?
I don't think the details have filtered down to most voters.
Do they
yet.
have to, or do they say, wait a minute, am I getting conned here?
I don't think the percentage of Goldman Sachs officials who are now in the federal government is really going to hit home for a lot of people. I think Jeannie's right. This debate has not been joined yet, but it will be as soon as you get past just bloviating and actually get to actual changes that are being mounted. And I'm sure Warren and Sanders will be leading the charge for Democrats. And at that point, it will be easy to paint President Trump as being too cozy with Wall Street, even though he pledged not to be at some point. But this is the process, this is the way everything works right now. It's financial regulation. Let me find one fairly arcane example that doesn't particularly work so well, so let's blow the whole thing up. Environmental policy. Well, you have some pollution requirements that are onerous for businesses, so let's blow the whole thing up, when really they don't want any of the controls on it. And you can just keep going through. Immigration is maybe the best example. The overwhelming majority of immigrants to our country are law-abiding and productive members of our society. There are a few who give them a bad name. You capitalize on that and then seek to change the entire system based on the one overly exposed bad example.
You know, I don't know anymore what the public wants or they don't want, Dom. Remember the idea that people are freaking out about too big to fail, right? And about why are these guys getting bailed out other than Lehman Brothers, right? And the rest of us, you know, are looking at a foreclosure on their house and everything else. Now this happens like 2008 never happened. So are they right? They are right that nobody's messaging, but could somebody effectively message this to say, hey, remember Joe Smith? Here's a picture of him. Look what happened to him, right? Now they want to go back to the way it was. Or should they just accept they don't have the numbers? They can't fight this thing and they can't win. So they can bitch and moan and they can tell everybody what a dumb idea this is, but that's the best they're going to do.
Unfortunately, there is someone messaging this quite well. It's the Republican Party, and I think that's what they're both saying. Andrew made an excellent point on Friday night, and it comes down to this, Richard. Unfortunately, you have a president who is a salesman at best. That's what he does. He says things, does things, says things that are false, but he sells constantly. That's been his rise to top, okay, President Trump. But to Andrew's point on Friday, they come forward, meaning folks that support him, and they say, well, we're doing this, getting rid of Dodd-Frank, because we need to save jobs. We need to save jobs. We're getting rid of all of this regulation, all in the names, as Andrew argued on Friday, of saving jobs. And that's the only thing that the public is hearing right now. So the professor is correct. The Democrats, Charles Schumer, where are you? Elizabeth Warren, she can make the case, but let's be honest. How many people are really listening to Elizabeth Warren? I mean, because she's seen as so out there and so far to the left that folks, the middle people, really don't hear what she has to say. So it's basically a con, and it's working.
Well, it's amazing. I can literally, you know, in an hour before a show, come up with 5 crazy things that goes on. And today we got another one. On the other side of the break, our president, he's gotten in fights, as you know, with Mexico, now Australia. But he does want to work with the Russian President Vladimir Putin. In case you missed it, you got to hear what he said about his buddy Vladimir. He's also changed his tune on Israel. It's getting hard to tell who are friends, who are enemies here. But when you come back from the break here, you got to hear his latest to be believed.